Woo! Welcome back. Looks like we have a quadratic to deal with. So first things first, let's solve for y1, or not let's solve for it, let's graph y1 equals the absolute value of x squared minus 2x, and y2 equals 1. Now I'm going to take this first one in a few steps. Remember our slick tricks with graphing quadratics? What I could do here is I could say y equals x squared minus 2x, but I can factor out an x, so then I get the factored form x minus 2. So I know that I have zeros at 0, x equals 0, and x equals positive 2, and I know that it opens up. There's no stretch factor. Whew! We can't lose any of those skills because we need them. We just absolutely need them. So let's graph first. Let's graph that parabola. Just going to move it over here. Give me a little more space. Boop, 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 boop. X and Y. So I'm going to graph, oh, don't forget my scale, 2 and 2. I have a dot here, and I have a dot here. Those are the two critical points, and I know that it opens up. So I have my vertex here, because over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1. And then I can actually put another one, over 2, up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Over 2, up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to draw it like that. Now, remember, though, we're dealing with the absolute value of it. So I am going to make any value that is negative in the y, make it positive. So I have this one, 1 comma negative 1 is going to be 1 comma positive 1. So this is actually going to be the shape of my absolute value parabola. Whoop. Whoop. And what I'm going to do is I am going to erase, because this just helped me draw that. That was just kind of something that helped me out. So I'm going to label this right here. This is, oh no, I didn't want to do that. This right here is my y1, which equals x squared minus 2x. And now I'm just going to graph this right here. X equals 1. Or sorry, y2 equals 1. I'm going to do that in green. So we can see from here that it actually touches 1, 2, 3 times. Now, the one solution is going to be really easy. It's just x equals 1. But what about here? And what about here? This is when solving algebraically is actually really, really helpful. Because what we can do is we don't have to just approximate it. We don't have to say, oh, I think it's like 2 plus a quarter. We can actually figure exactly out what it is. But we know that we're looking for 3 solutions, and that's a really helpful place to be. So we're going to use the same principles as we did before. And we're going to, oh yeah, I got lots of room here. I'm going to say x squared minus 2x, the absolute value, equals 1. So we're going to split it off into 2 different solutions. So that's x squared minus 2x equals 1, and x squared minus 2x equals negative 1. This kind of looks like x2. X squared. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solve for each of these. So that is x squared minus 2x minus 1 equals 0. And then this one is x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. This one is really easy to factor, because I know that it is going to be 2 numbers that multiply out to positive 1, but add up to negative 2. Well, that's just negative 1 and negative 1. So we have x minus 1 And if you know a quicker trick to be able to get to the final answer, that's totally cool too. I actually love that one more. That is just x minus 1 squared equals 0. So that means that x equals 1. Okay, that's one solution. But this one right here, two numbers that multiply out to -1 and add up to -2. That doesn't really exist or work. So unfortunately, we are going to have to use quadratic formula or use perfect squares to help us out by completing the square. I love the quadratic formula. I have it right at the tip of my brain. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, where a equals 1, in this case b equals -2, and c equals -1. X equals -2 plus or minus the square root of -2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is -1, all over 2 times 1, which is a. So now let's clean this up a little bit. So that is 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 4 over 2. X equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 8 over 2. And if we wanted to get real picky, I would say x equals, and I'm going to take a few steps to do this, plus or minus 4 times 2 over 2. X equals 2 plus or minus 2 root 2 over 2. Cancel, but then since there's adding and subtracting, I need to cancel from both terms in the numerator. Don't want to kill kittens here. So x equals 1 plus or minus root 2. So I have two solutions here. I have the quadratic formula, which, just for the record, you never have to verify. You don't have to verify using the quadratic formula. But, you know, just for kicks, let's just make sure that this is truly fine. Now, if you graph it and you see something like this, this can be seen as like a verification. But if we were just to do it algebraically, I'll just model it here. Right-hand side, left-hand side, right-hand side. So we're going to say the absolute value of 1 squared minus 2 times 1, and 1 on the right-hand side. The absolute value of 1 minus 2. 1 minus 2 is -1. The absolute value of -1 is 1. Left-hand side equals right-hand side. Good. We're great. All right. Last but not least, what a big spicy meatball over here. We want to solve this algebraically. So step number 1, we need to make sure that the absolute values are isolated. And guess what? They are. So I'm going to take this into two different chunks here. I'm going to say absolute value, x minus 10 equals x squared minus 10x. And on this side, I'm going to say x minus 10 equals negative, and then I'm going to put the whole right-hand side in brackets, x squared minus 10x. All right, so I'm just going to bring everything over to this side because it's a positive x, and I like that. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides and add 10. So 0 equals x squared. Negative 10x minus x is negative 11x plus 10. Now this is factorable because two numbers that multiply out to positive 10 and add up to negative 11 are negative 10 and negative 1. So 0 equals x minus 10 and x minus 1. So that means our x values, or the x values that will bring this to 0, are going to be positive 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. And the solution using this one is going to be positive 1. So we need to check those because we don't have a visual graph to help us out. But before we do that, why don't we go over to this side? Now don't forget, we need to distribute this negative to both terms. So x minus 10 equals negative x squared plus 10x. I want to keep it positive, so I'm going to bring this x squared over to this side. So I get x squared. I'm going to subtract 10x from both sides. So this is negative 9x, because x minus 10x is negative 9. And this is going to be negative 10 equals 0. So two numbers that multiply out to negative 10 and add up to negative 9. That is going to be x minus 10, x plus 1 equals 0. Great! So I know that x equals positive 10, which is just a repeat solution here. And we also have x equals negative 1. Alright, and so now comes the verification party. So we have literally 1, 2, and 3 distinct solutions that we need to check. So x equals 10, which happens 2 times. So left hand side, right hand side. I'm going back to the original equation. So we have the absolute value on this side, left hand side, the absolute value of 10, because I'm substituting my 10, minus 10. And on the right hand side I have 10 squared minus 10 times 10. 10 minus 10 is just the absolute value of 0, which is 0. 10 squared is 100, minus 10 times 10, hilarious, that's a different way of saying 10 squared. 100 minus 100 is 0. Woo! Left hand side equals right hand side is a go. So we can say yes to x equals 10. What about x equals 1? Left hand side, right hand side. The absolute value of, I'm just going to say, okay, 1 minus 10 is on the left hand side. On the right hand side I have 1 squared minus 10 times 1. So we have the absolute value of 1 minus 10, which is negative 9. The absolute value of negative 9 is going to be positive 9. Let's see what happens on this side. This is 1 minus 10 is negative 9. Left hand side does not equal right hand side. So that means that x equals 1 is not a solution. Good thing we verified. X equals negative 1. Left hand side, right hand side. Psh, psh. So then we have the absolute value of negative 1 minus 10. And then the right hand side we have negative 1 squared minus 10 times negative 1. Negative 1 minus 10 is going to be the absolute value of negative 11, which is positive 11. And here we have negative 1 squared is 1 plus 10 is positive 11. So left hand side does equal right hand side. Woohoo! So that means that negative 1 is a solution. So in summary, we can say that x equals 10 and it also equals negative 1. Put a box around it. Now this makes it very clear that I know what my answer is. I would on a provincial exam need to cross out or reject the roots that don't work out. But in this case, I've done both. I've crossed out the roots that don't work out, and I've also stated my final answer with a box around it. That makes it very clear.